Wow, that was a lot of pig parts. But that really shouldn't surprise you. You know that we have a homology in us for almost every one of those parts, maybe a different size and shape. But the only thing we don't have one of is a good size cecum. But even there we have a vestigial thing called an appendix. Now, take a couple deep breaths. We'll move on to the last systems that we will talk about, urinary, and the one system we don't really need as individuals, but sure is helpful for the species, and that's reproductive. Without that, well, you could be considered alive yourself, but your species won't be there for long if nobody has that capacity. We'll start first with the female, move on to the male, and then we'll zoom back out because I'm bringing you closer in. These are fairly small parts. We'll zoom back out to our original little piggy and show you almost every part labeled that we took a look at. Now, before we get into the specifics of reproduction, let me remind you of a couple of really essential organs that we've seen before, but might have a little bit better view here because they're better exposed. Start there. Anybody recall that? That is the umbilical vein that came from, indeed, the umbilicus, the umbilical cord. We cut that earlier. That's the lifeblood, that's the life force. That is everything that mom sends from her half of the placenta through your half, through the blood supply to the fetus. Gives you everything you need. We're going to tuck that out of the way. But let's also remember what else is in that umbilicus. The umbilical cord has, well, the one we already saw, the umbilical vein, then the two umbilical arteries. Those are coming from you, or me, off of the aorta, running on either side of the urinary bladder, returning semi-used blood back to mom, asking her to do her magic. Clean out the CO2, most of it, get rid of the wastes, and then put good nutrition and oxygen back in. We'll come back to that bladder in a little while. A couple other things that have a bit better exposure here, that you might not have seen well before. Spleen, really part of the blood-making system initially, and then the lymphatics. Where is that? On the outside curvature of the stomach. There's the stomach. Bringing us to the inside curvature of the stomach, beautiful view of this pancreas, lobular, kind of grape cluster-like. Notice how close it is to, you know what, the duodenum. Duodenum accepting the pancreas, the stomach, and not to be visualized too well here, but in a little bit later you will see it nicely, the gallbladder. On to our female reproductive parts. Not much to be seen when you're this small, heck, haven't even been born, but still, we can get a view. Ovary on one side, right ovary. Ovary on the other side, left ovary. Now the pin here is in a kind of a magical portion, of kind of a funnel-like soft tissue that encircles the ovary and catches the ovum or multiple ova when they ovulate. The bottom of the funnel is the beginning of the, oh, look at that, you can actually see it, the oviduct, a duct that takes the ova to the uterus. Look at this. We got another uterus over here. All right, that's not like us, but then again, we don't have litters of 16 to 20 piglets either. So yes, we only have one uterus. They have two, what's called uterine horns. They meet in the middle at the cervix, that's the same as with us, then out the vaginal vault to the, and I believe we can visualize this here, through the pelvic canal, and let's see if we can sneak down here, take a peek at that. Yeah, genital papilla, where it all comes out. One other thing I'd like to show you here, which we'll bring up again in the male, is this. What the heck's that, huh? Well, you can't see it too well because it's covered by, guess what? What kind of membrane covers all of these organs? Serous. In this case, well, we're in the abdominal cavity. Therefore, that's got to be the peritoneum. Hiding behind there is the kidney. Yes, the kidney does not necessarily fall away from the body, so it only has one layer of peritoneum, the parietal. And the last thing I will mention is, yes, just as we're heading toward the male, all of these parts start on the inside of the body. The females stay on the inside. Depending upon the hormones that are being exuded by certain glands, these original unisex parts either become the uterine horns, if there's enough estrogen, or the vas deferens. Whichever one doesn't grow becomes a vestigial portion. That is very likely what would have become the vas deferens in the male, but it is now of no use. Give you a couple moments to look at that and bring in our friend, the boy Piggy. Then we'll move on to our original. Here's our little friend, the boy. And we will start with the urinary system. Now, that you can't do without. That's certainly something that's essential. Cleans up an awful lot of blood, about 100 times as much blood as the urine you produce. So there's the kidney on one side, there's one on the other, but you only have to see one. How do we make that urine? We get blood from the aorta through the renal artery. All those millions of nephrons make little bits of urine, and then what is left over goes back to the bloodstream through the renal vein, to the vena cava, to the heart. Well, what are you going to do with that urine once it's made? You send it out. All those little bitty streams are tributaries of this one big kind of river, urine river, the ureter. Again, one on either side, both of which lead to the urinary bladder. Yep, that same urinary bladder that has the umbilical arteries running on either side of it. Now, Mom does such a good job of cleaning up your blood, you don't have to make too much urine while you're inside, but the little bit you might make goes out the allantoic duct, that fourth thing that's almost impossible to see in the umbilicus. On to the male parts. Now, if we had left this down in there, yes, it would have been hidden in the scrotum. There's one side, the male testis. I remember how we said that all these parts start on the inside? Well, that's not on the inside anymore. There's the outside of the abdominal wall. There's the inside of the abdominal wall. Indeed, months ago, when this thing was very, very tiny, it snuck right through the abdominal wall, and you can actually see movement of the lumens that go through there. You could probably figure out those lumens because it is alive. It's got to be fed with blood, so you got an artery and vein. It is very tender, so you got a genital nerve, very, very tiny. And of course, it has to deliver its product. The product being spermatozoans from both testes. Again, just as the uterine horns met in the middle, well, these vas deferens meet in the middle too. And their final exit, of course, is to meet with the urethra and go all the way outside to that urethral orifice in the prepuce. Give you a couple of moments to look at that. And we're going to bring in our original fella with a lot of busy labels, but without them, maybe you won't be able to identify what they are. We'll zoom out again so you can see them all at once.